is trapped in your brain, and with the use of these substances, you can kind of let it out to stretch its legs for a little while. Give it a chance to shake off the dust and get moving for a little bit before heading back in for the night. It's difficult to describe the sensation because it's not a sensation you can get from anything else. There's nothing to compare it to. Imagine something you love, something that you've experienced 1,000 times, something you've gotten to know backwards and forwards, like your favorite movie or your favorite song or your favorite fruit or video game, anything, doesn't matter what it is. Now, imagine you could experience it again for the first time, except without any of the cultural or personal baggage of knowing what a movie, song, fruit, or video game even is or should be. You can just experience it, unmoored from any preconception, completely unfiltered. It's like that, but for everything. If you see a pigeon, you'll be transfixed by its innate pigeonliness. If you drink a glass of water, suddenly that makes you aware of every muscle inside your body and every mechanism that pulls water into you, like 1,000 hidden funnels. If you see a car, you'll for the first time understand the real difference between you and a car, and you and the road, and you and the air, and you and what you thought you were just a second ago. And oh my god, a car's engine is kind of like a stomach, and it has a gas tank that's like a mouth, and Jesus Christ, that means cars are farting all of the time. Hey, you know, when you think about it, cars are like a little exosuit that you can drive around, but instead of a cool mech, it just takes you suddenly. The whole world comes into resplendent focus. You feel like you've been a cave-dwelling early human, telling the story of your present life to your tribe, the details fleeting from memory. You're the first ape to pick up a rock and make a pointy stick with it. You're an amoeba crawling out of the primordial ooze. You're one link in an unbroken chain of living organisms that extends backwards through time to every living thing that has ever or will ever live on Earth. The chemical reaction that first produced life never stopped. It's still going. That's what you are. That's what you've always been. But also, do you ever really think about how good the Muppets are? They're real good. That's what thinking is like on psychedelics. It's at once frivolous, but also profound, and it vacillates between those two extremes so fast that you can barely tell the difference. And you begin to wonder if there even is a difference. And that's not even getting into the truly weird effects these things can have. In the fictional world where I've taken these drugs, I've never gone much beyond entry-level doses. But people who do report a complete dissolution of the self, becoming one with a beautiful warm glow that stretches infinitely towards the cosmic horizon. Or dissolving into terrifying oblivion for what feels to them like eternity. Traveling across other planes of existence and meeting beings who are oddly consistent across reports, some benevolent, some malign. Returning with religious sentiments that they didn't have when they left. They produce such profound changes in people. They open people's minds to new ways of thinking, to new ways of being. They reveal an esoteric and immaterial truth that, to them, seems every bit as real as the world around us. And it's kind of no wonder that the powers that be want them illegal, right? I mean, I don't want to sound conspiratorial here, but why would the owners of capital want us to feel a profound sense of unity? Why would they want us to empathize with one another more easily? Wouldn't that lead to, like, class consciousness? Makes you think. Why would they want us to question the way the world is organized and whether it could be organized better when the way that it's organized now suits them just fine? Why would they want us to question why each of us has to spend so much time doing things we hate for their benefit, when there's precious little time in this world to even do the things we love without all that extra bullshit? Why would they want us to have a safe and effective treatment for depression, addiction, or PTSD if the alternative treatments are things they own the patents on? If maybe those conditions themselves are monetizable, letting them sell self-help books or whatever it is you're addicted to in the first place. Oh, there's sweet bean juice. There's sweet bean juice. Don't even talk to me before I've had my coffee. It's beyond frustrating to me that these substances are illegal for reasons that seem more to do with cultural inertia than anything else. I hate that something which I find so beautiful is stigmatized to the point that it can genuinely ruin someone's career or reputation to be associated with them. I hate that misinformation and sensationalist propaganda has made people think that something that has the power to do a lot of good for a lot of people is more dangerous than it is, And in creating that narrative, that thing actually becomes more dangerous than it would have needed to be in the first place. I can't help but imagine a world in which everyone had safe, affordable access to psychedelics, where people were free to make the choice for themselves if the risks are something they're willing to take on, and if they did, those risks could be assessed with level-headed and accurate information and proper harm reduction to keep them safe. And most of all, I hate seeing these things being commodified as productivity-enhancing microdoses. I hate the idea that something with such liberatory potential is being used to more deeply entrench us in the endless productivity hellscape of life in late capitalism. I hate seeing the limitless potential to increase our creativity, empathy, and spirituality reduced to what's best for the bottom line of Silicon Valley, allowing its engineers to convert more and more calories into JavaScript. It is profane, bordering on blasphemous. I'd encourage you to learn more about psychedelic drugs, because I think most people have a very backwards view of them. If you still think that taking LSD 8 times makes you legally insane, or you're gonna think you're a orange and peel yourself, or that it collects in your spine and randomly sends you back into trips whenever you crack a bone in your spine, and that's what flashbacks are, I hate to tell you, you got duped. Psychedelics aren't so simple that they can be classified into good or bad, safe or dangerous. They're a drug, and like any drug, they are to be treated with caution and respect. But there's a reason people seek out these experiences. There's a reason they come back for more of them. And there's a reason that so many ancient cultures incorporate them into religious ceremonies. There's a reason that so many of your favorite works of art were directly inspired by psychedelic experiences. And I, for one, think that's something worth protecting and something worth fighting for. Were you entertained by the pillow? Comment below if you found my placement of this pillow to be entertaining. Thanks for watching another beautiful Thoughtsline video. If you liked it, please press the like button, and also subscribe for more videos every 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. Hey, you want more Thoughtslime videos? Guess what, dummy? I got other channels. You can check out Scaredycats at youtube.com/scaredycatstv, where I discuss horror movies every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I got the Mega Slime Entertainment Zone, where I play video games. You can check out a new video on that channel every friggin' day at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maybe you also want to watch me stream on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can do that. There's no shortage of content that I'm making for you, my lovely, beautiful audience. But hey, guess what? You know what? Maybe you want to give me money and you're like, how do I give this guy money? Well, you can do that at patreon.com/thoughtslime is where people go to do that. Please bear with me in the forthcoming months as I work out production issues that have resulted of my move. I am gonna get some new equipment that makes it more doable, and it's all gonna get worked out. The cat pillow won't be the only thing entertaining you in the future. I'll have all sorts of little tricks.
Dude goes to doctor, says he's depressed, says life seems harsh and cruel, says he feels all alone in a threatening world where what lies ahead is vague and uncertain. Doctor says, treatment is simple. YouTuber Thoughtslime made video today. Go and watch. That should pick you up. Dude bursts into tears, says, but doctor, I am Thoughtslime. Good joke. Everybody like and subscribe. Roll on snare drum.
Hello, it's me, the Jokler. Want to know how I got these scars? Guess what? It was from a knife. Just kidding, it's me, Thoughtslime. And today, I'm going to talk about jokes. And I'm off to a great start because I'm being really funny already. Jokes! I love them, you love them. Boy, it's fun to josh around with pals. Laughter is probably the best feeling in the world. The only pleasure life can give you that doesn't require any sort of sacrifice. You can't enjoy food without being hungry. You can't enjoy sex without being thirsty. You can't enjoy exercise, personal development, or even child rearing without putting the work in. But laughter is just pure joy, for free. And a good laugh can really do wonders for you. It can turn around a bad day, it can make a bad situation bearable, it can even bring you together with people. I owe pretty much all of my close friendships, every relationship I've ever had, and most of my professional career to my sense of humor. Now, my jokes certainly aren't to everyone's tastes, but they've given me a great deal of blessings in my life. And if you don't think I'm funny, oh, you think it's so easy? Why don't you get a... I used to do stand-up comedy for a living. Well, not for a living, I never made a living, but I did it for money. I did this for many years. It used to be my sole creative outlet. And there's a certain attitude among stand-up comedians that I always kind of disliked. They talked about the importance of what they do, what a responsibility they felt. Personally, I find that a little pompous. I think a comedian's job is to make people laugh. I think laughter is enough. I think it actually diminishes the importance of comedy to suggest that it must always do something else. It must always seek to educate or agitate. Comedy does not require justification. It's worthwhile on its own terms. Some people couldn't handle the idea that their work was frivolous. It needed to be something more. They needed to feel like they had an impact. Some people felt strongly that comedy was something sacred, a way to exorcise bad thoughts or contextualize the darkness at the heart of humanity in a way that robbed it of its power. So they viewed any attempts at censorship as interference with this holy mission. Their job, their duty, was to portray the warts and wrinkles of humanity with as much honesty as they could muster. Predictably, this led to people being competitively dark, to reveal harsher and crueler truths. And for those things to be true, they needed to live that experience. They needed to become toxic, to revel in their toxicity, so that they could excoriate that toxicity on stage, show everyone how brave they were. I was doing a show out of town once, with 2 other comics. For those that don't go to a lot of comedy shows, they're usually structured into 3 acts. An MC who works the crowd, gets them excited, and then introduces the other 2 acts. The middle, who is usually the less skilled or less experienced act that does about 15 to 20 minutes of material. And the headliner, whose name is on the ticket, who usually does about 40 to an hour. Now, I was almost always the middle act. I never really graduated from that. I occasionally MC'd, but I wasn't good at it, and usually it was only when they couldn't find someone else to fill that spot in time. So it was me or nobody. Since we were out of town, the company that I worked for had set us up in a hotel room. And the hotel room that they had set up in this city was this enormous apartment at the top of a hotel that all 3 acts typically shared. Now, the MC that weekend was local, so he wasn't staying with us. So we were doing 3 or 4 shows that weekend, and on one of them, the headliner had his buddy come on to do a guest spot, which is fairly common. That night, though, the buddy and the headliner both bombed miserably, while both I and the MC did fine. Not amazing, but fine. I don't particularly remember the guest spot's act. It didn't seem terrible to me, as I recall. But I remember the headliner's act, and I remember the exact moment the crowd turned against him. And content warning, because some pretty horrific ableism is about to start. Now, I don't remember the exact bit he did, and I wouldn't tell another comic's bit online anyway, even though it's a disgusting bit that I hate. The basic idea was that he was pitching ideas to make the Special Olympics more exciting. Now, me even saying that, you can feel something bad is coming. And I think a truly skilled comedian could do something very interesting with that tension. That dreadful feeling that someone is about to say something terrible, and what's more, they're going to make you complicit in whatever they say, and you might even laugh at it. The punchline was that for the high dive event, they could probably get a better dive out of the athlete by tying their teddy bear to a cinder block and dropping it in the pool. Funny stuff. The audience was silent for the rest of his set. And that's the worst and most humiliating thing a comedian can experience. At least if you get a hostile crowd, you can fight back. If people boo you, you're at least getting a reaction, but a completely indifferent crowd, you might as well not be there. That night, the 3 of us, the headline act, the guest spot, and me, were in the apartment smoking a joint. The headline act says, "Well, that crowd was terrible. They hated being made to think." He says to me, "No offense, but what you and the MC do, anyone can do that. Anyone can make people laugh." See, I want to make people think. I want to challenge people. That crowd tonight, they weren't ready for that. In his mind, the fact that he bombed made him the better comic. The fact that the MC and I did not bomb, that made us inferior, lesser comics, because we played it safe. So I asked him, well, with your Special Olympics joke, what were you trying to make people think about? What I left unsaid was that I actually thought it was a very tasteless joke. One that if anyone were to actually think about, it would be completely inert, unfunny, genuinely horrific. But he had thought about it. He said to me that he felt like nobody should pity anyone, that pity was a dismissive and thoughtless response to people who were different, and people who faced different challenges in life. He himself had struggled with profound medical issues, and felt strongly that the pity he received was condescending, unhelpful, and made him feel like a smaller person. So, by making fun of the Special Olympics, and by extension, the mentally and/or physically disabled people that compete in the Special Olympics, he was respecting them in some way. He was showing that he didn't pity them, and encouraging the audience not to pity them either. It struck me then, as it does now, that this was a post hoc rationalization for a mean-spirited joke. But even so, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I said, well, I've never pitied anyone in the Special Olympics. I've always found them very inspiring. I don't think it's respectful to insult them, and the idea that the audience needs to be taught not to pity them doesn't really make sense to me either, because I don't think people really do pity athletes in the Special Olympics. And he said to me, ugh, it's just a joke. The conversation ended after that. He judged me as an oversensitive SJW who couldn't be made to meet people on their level, and I judged him to be an insensitive prick. Looking back, I'm kind of astonished by that response. It's just a joke. I mean, his whole argument was that he wanted to make people think, that it wasn't just a joke. It was meant to communicate a sincere message. The moment I asked whether that message was true, or if it was true, if it was worth stating, he instantly shut down and told me it was just a joke, not to be thought about or analyzed. Now, my point here isn't to put this dude on blast. My act wasn't exactly woke at the time either, and this was years ago. I have no idea whether he still tells that joke, or whether he still feels that way. Also, he had a really shitty show that night, so it's possible he was just pissed off. Didn't really mean anything he was saying. No, the point is to retroactively win an argument by presenting it to my audience that I have carefully cultivated to agree with my position, and telling the story in a way that flatters me and makes me look like the reasonable person debating a prejudiced jerk. Wait, fuck, no it wasn't. I mean, the real reason is that it's a very clear example of the type of cognitive dissonance I see online a lot. That jokes can make important political statements, but can't be criticized for making a statement by virtue of the fact that they are jokes. Joking is a legitimate means of expressing oneself and speaking truth to power, and thus must be respected and protected at all costs. But, also, it's meaningless silliness, so you can't ever analyze those messages that are definitely important and must be protected. I make all sorts of jokes here on my highly political YouTube channel, and most of the time I'm trying to communicate my sincere political beliefs through those jokes. I actually think it's kind of cowardly to retreat from criticism of one's political position because it was stated in the middle of a joke. Now don't get me wrong, you can facetiously make a point that you disagree with for comic effect, and I think it would be ridiculous to criticize someone for that. However, even in doing that, one reveals a certain position, a set of assumptions and beliefs that are genuine and not above criticism. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Here's a joke that I could see myself tweeting. I don't care if you always agree with what the cops do, you should always drink their piss if they ask. Now, obviously, I don't believe that. It's clearly a joke. I actually think it's a very bad idea to drink cop piss. But it says something about what I actually believe. Namely, that people who support and apologize for the police are pathetic and will go to absurd lengths to comply with even the most unjust demands or impositions. If you were to criticize me for saying that I think people should drink cops' piss, you'd be missing the point. You'd be criticizing a joke. I don't believe that, obviously. But if you were to criticize me for trying to make people less sympathetic to the police, that would be appropriate criticism because that's exactly what I'm trying to do with the joke. Also, you'd be wrong. Fuck you, piss drinker. Now say you were to criticize me for trying to make people less sympathetic to the police, and I were to say, hey, it's just a joke, it's a goof and a gaff, you can't criticize an idea that was said in a funny way. I mean, it's a joke, but it's very clearly not just a joke. What's happening to me? My eyes! Welcome to the Eyeball Zone, where I give away eyeballs for free. Today I want to talk about a YouTube channel called Bad Empanada, but don't let the name fool you. He's not bad or an empanada. He's a human and good. He's an Argentinian history grad who covers a broad range of political, historical, and sociological topics in an informative and well-researched way that's still completely approachable. Check out his video on Peronism, an ideology I had never heard of before he sent me this video, linked in the description. Hey, do you want eyeballs? Warm, delicious eyeballs? Email me at thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com and you just might find yourself trapped here in the eyeball zone. A joke can't exist in a vacuum. It relies on shared cultural knowledge, a mutual experience. The more you can relate to people, the more you can get them to relate with you, the funnier you'll be as a person, as a general rule. Ask yourself, what people understand you the most, and what people do you laugh with the most? I'd bet that there's a lot of overlap in that Venn diagram. Very seldomly, when people complain about a joke, are they complaining about the exaggeration or the punchline of the joke. They're complaining about the assumptions that the joke is based on. They're saying that the assumptions that make this joke funny to you are hurtful to me. And while the joke maker may not believe what they're saying literally, they might still genuinely make the assumptions that are actually being criticized. And to respond to that with, "It's just a joke, it's an exaggeration, I don't mean what I'm saying," misses the point of that criticism. It's a deflection. I'll give you an example of what I mean. People make a lot of jokes about Trump and Putin being in love with each other. Now clearly, nobody genuinely believes that Trump and Putin are gay lovers. They're using it as an insult, a way to demean both men. It's an exaggeration of the perceived domination that Putin holds over Trump from his alleged political influence. And that's like super homophobic, because it's implying that there's something diminishing about being gay, that being gay is something to be mocked. Now you might say that both men are homophobes, so calling them gay is a way to pick at their insecurities. But firstly, neither of these men are going to read your very witty tweet or see your political cartoon, so I find that justification lacking. Secondly, the mutual understanding you are attempting to cultivate, the assumption that the joke rests on, is that being gay is somehow farcical, something to be mocked or scorned, something embarrassing and beneath powerful men. Now, there are degrees of this, of course. Some jokes might catch people in the crossfire in a way that's wildly unpredictable, or not really insulting enough to be a problem. I make a lot of jokes about how sweaty I get in the summer, and that does imply that there's something wrong with being sweaty. And is that fair to people with glandular disorders that make them sweaty all the time? At the end of the day, there's a certain amount of personal discretion that has to be taken into account. And that can be a problem because it means that what is and what is not an acceptable joke is, to some degree, open to personal interpretation. And that leaves wiggle room for bad actors to argue that their jokes aren't harmful enough to warrant criticism. One of the common things that people cite is the idea of punching up versus punching down. To punch up is to make fun of someone more powerful than you, someone of higher status. To punch down is to do the opposite, to make fun of someone with less status than you. Now I think this one really only applies to jokes with negative elements. You don't really have to clear most knock-knock jokes by this standard. It's just a handy way to tell whether or not you're abusing privilege to tell a joke that people might be uncomfortable with, but might be unable to tell you why. Maybe they're expected to play along, or if they did speak up, people would just dismiss their criticism as being too sensitive. If I made a racist joke on YouTube, most people would rightly call that out as unacceptable. And when I say most people, I mean most people in my audience, not YouTube writ large. They'd be cool with it, they like racist jokes, but you get my point. Now, if I made a racist joke privately in a group of my white friends and one person of color, there's a powerful social disincentive on that person of color to speak up and say they don't like the joke. They're risking alienating themselves, making me defensive, and who knows whether or not the other people present will even understand their complaint, let alone agree with them. And I might then come to think the joke isn't offensive, because hey, Dave laughed. Now, I personally would not consciously make a prejudiced joke. However, I might unconsciously make a prejudiced joke. I did, quite recently, in fact. I made a lazy joke about the Irish spelling of the name Owen, And I didn't know it was the Irish spelling, so my intent certainly wasn't to make fun of Irish people, but I still contributed to prejudice against the Irish and demeaned the language that they've been fighting for generations to protect. My intent is irrelevant. I didn't mean to do harm, but I did harm. And I never would have known I did harm if people who were hurt by the joke had not spoken up and held me accountable for it.